Hi everybody, this video is about why my first marriage ended. I wanted to answer some questions, clear up some misunderstandings, and just counter, any outright lies that are or were floating around. This is like almost 40 years ago, so nobody cares anymore, but the answer to why I'm making this video now is in the next video. Alright, the divorce was between me and my first wife was not caused by booze. I've never been drunk in my life. I'm what you call a non-drinker, but the most alcohol I've ever had was maybe a quarter glass of wine on Christmas Day or maybe Easter or something like that, but even then not every year, so I would be classed as a non-drinker. We didn't have booze in the house. Jane didn't really drink because I didn't drink. It was not caused by religion. Jane and I were non-religious. We celebrated Christmas and Easter, but we weren't particularly religious. We didn't go to church, so it was not caused by religion or a difference in religious beliefs. It was not caused by beatings. There was no physical violence between my first wife and I. She never hit me and I never hit her. It was not caused by infidelity. There was some what you would call flirting going on, but her and I kept each other in line and there was no infidelity. It was not caused by drugs. I don't use drugs, neither did Jane when she was married to me, so we didn't have any kind of drug problem. It was not caused by recreational drugs. It was not caused by one of us turning homosexual. We had 2 kids. We were young people, a young man, young woman, married, and we had a normal sex life, and nobody switched teams. It was not caused by poverty. I was an apprentice electrician during most of my marriage. I did become a journeyman, and at first we really had to watch our budget, but later on I was making a little bit more money at journeyman rate, and my first wife had her own car. I had my own car, his and hers Camaros. We were so-called owners of a little condominium, which was big enough for our family. Of course, we had a gigantic mortgage on it. So I wouldn't say it's poverty. We had good, plentiful food, 2 cars. Oh, and Jane, I said, Jane's job, she was a mother and of 2 little toddlers, and she kept house. She did the cooking and the cleaning. I worked a full-time job, and I said that her job continued even though I was able to come home at the end of the day. She was still looking after the kids, and so I said, look, if you want to get a babysitter during the day, just hire a babysitter and go. You're not trapped in the house, so it's not caused by entrapment. Okay, we had the standard husband and wife roles. So for vacations, we did argue about how to spend money. So whatever money we had, she was, liked to spend it on things that I didn't like, and I just hardly ever spent money. I was trying to save up so that I would be able to pay rent and groceries at the end of the month. That was my major concern, because working in construction, you're always working yourself out of a job. When you finish an electrical installation or you're building, your renovation's done, whatever, you're out of a job. So electrical contractors are continuously looking for work, and if the work dries up, then you're out of work. That was my biggest fear, is that the four of us would be kicked out on the street and starve. So I was much more cautious with our money. I wanted to save it and just always have it ready in case I needed it. Now, so for vacations, we could go longer if we went camping. Now, camping is something that either you like it or you hate it. Jane had never been camping before. She had long hair. She was a city girl, but she was a trooper and she tried out camping and she mostly hated it because it's a lot of work compared to, say, staying in a motel or a hotel. Now, we did stay in a motel or a hotel once in a while, very, very infrequently. We went camping most of the time, because we could go camping for longer for the same amount of money as staying in a hotel room for one night. You could go camping for a week on that price. Okay, so what was the divorce caused by? Well, I can only go by what my first wife told me. In September of 1982, she just had a nervous breakdown. She was crying all the time, and she wouldn't tell me what it was. So I said, well, look, is the looking after the kids too much? I'll help out when I come home. I'll do all the cooking, all the cleaning, all the laundry. You don't have to do anything. And she would just cry harder when I said that. And she just cried. I would come home and she'd be crying. She'd cry all evening. And then we wouldn't sleep in the same bed, and then I'd wake up and she'd still be downstairs crying, and then I'd leave for work and she'd be crying, and then I'd come home after work the next day and she'd be crying. And this went on for a month. And so then she told me that these are her words, so I can only, go by what she told me. She said, I want to be a teenager again. She said, I went directly from my parents' house to your house. Now, she didn't say our house. She said your house, meaning my house. And what I took from that was that she was living under her parents' rules, and then somehow in my house I had rules. And the only thing I could think of was that I don't drink or do drugs, and I go camping, and so she looked at those as rules. So I mean, that's her perception. I can't say that her perception is wrong. But fear of missing out on her teenage years. So we eloped from her. I left my parents' place when I was 18, and I got an apartment with $300 in my bank account and a backpack of stuff on my back. Her and I eloped from her parents' house because her mom did not want her marrying a white guy. I don't know exactly how her dad felt about marrying a white guy, but he didn't want her to get married so young, I don't think. But we ended up leaving her parents' house, so she came, and then, she was completely dependent on her parents and then becoming completely dependent on me. So she never was responsible for herself. She never was responsible for living on the amount of money that she made. And she never had any kind of wild years, which I guess is what she meant by that. Now, a couple other things kind of congealed at the same time. What she was crying about is that an old friend of hers came back from Banff, and her brother lived in his dad's house, and his dad was rich. And I found out later that they had some things going on behind my back during that time she was crying, and she said that I want to be a teenager again. And I said, okay, well, how's that going to work? I mean, we've got 2 kids. Should have thought of that before. And then she told me that her boyfriend's going to help her out, and I won't mention his name here. So, okay, fine. So we went up to my parents' place. It was a Sunday, so I'd like to get my kids to see my parents once a week. And we were up there, and then she just walked out the door without telling anybody. And so my mom noticed her walking out the door, and my mom came and got me and said, "Hey, Jane just left." And so I ran out the front door, and she was gone. So like the difference in time of my mom yelling down to me to come up, it was probably, I'd say 15 seconds. And I ran out in the street, and within 15, she was gone. So this was prearranged. I mean, she was picked up, and I kind of know who it was. So anyway, she had this boyfriend happening, and the other thing is my first wife was very impressionable. She wanted to be a white feminist woman. She hated being Chinese. Some people didn't even know she could speak Chinese for years. And she was very susceptible to following feminism. She had friends who were always putting men down and putting marriage down. And she had one friend in particular who'd gone through divorce, and she was a really real feminist. And I think the feminist friend helped push her over the edge to, you know, take off with the boyfriend. I heard through the grapevine, through mutual friends that we have in common, that's what would happen, is that the feminist friend encouraged my wife to leave me for the boyfriend and just have a wild, great time. So the aftermath was pretty bad. Like, I mean, I was sued into pennilessness, even though I had the kids. I was a single dad, absolute single dad for a year and a half. She didn't take the kids. I had them. I was supporting them full time, even though it was joint custody. But you know, her lawyer sued me to pay her lawyer, so you know, my bank account, whatever was left in it's drained. And the property settlement is based on the value of the property at the moment she walked out, and the property values were dropping quickly in Edmonton at that time. So I ended up owing her money. I ended up owing the bank money, and I had to quit claim the house. So then we had this joint custody thing happening for a while, and I was unemployed for a long time. I couldn't get work. And of course, all the back and forth with the kids started to happen, and I found that every time I tried to help my kids with their schoolwork, like doing flashcards or like mock tests, things like this, make sure they do their homework on time, my first wife really hated school. She absolutely hated school. When she was still married to me, I told her, this is, you know, long before the divorce, but I told her, I said, you know, you were working at the house here, looking after the kids, while I went to apprenticeship, through my apprenticeship. So now that I'm a journeyman, I'll pay for your schooling if you want to go back to school. For Nate, or if even university if you want, I'll pay for it all. Because I looked at us as a team. That actually set her off. She was totally furious that I would suggest that she go back to school. She absolutely hated school. So, but anyway, I tried to help my kids academically, but then every time I would do something like that, my kids, of course, would tell my ex-wife, and she would take countermeasures, and she would sabotage, trying to just get back at me. And it got so bad that, I mean, this is one of the things that I heard from my kids, is that my ex-wife was taking steps to change their last name to her boyfriend's last name, even though they weren't married, and which would erase any connection I had with my own kids, destroy my legacy, which is important to a man, I think. So this was getting really, I mean, destructive. So I had to instead of calling over there to the house, just check up on them, see how they're doing, because my ex-wife worked in the evenings and my 2 young kids were at home alone a lot. I would phone over there, see how they're doing, and I was met with more and more hostility, and I recognized the phrases that they were using, the terminology. It was feminism. It was man-hating feminism from my own kids. And so I figured, you know, with the sabotaging going on and the countermeasures and the increased hostility, then I had to train myself not to contact my kids, because it just made it worse. I don't want my kids to, you know, change their last name. So I had to train myself to just forget about calling my kids. And it took a while. It took about a year until I, you know, stopped thinking of them to call them, instead of thinking of calling them, catching myself, and then saying, oh, I can't do that. It took about a year, and then I just was completely out of the habit of keeping in touch with them. So whatever I taught them up to the age of about 8 and you know, 12 or 13, I mean, maybe not even 13, 7 to 12 or 8 to 12, whatever I taught them up to that point, that's it from me. That's what they had to run with for the rest of their life. So that was really damaging to my relationship with my kids. So I have just a very minimal relationship at all, if anything, right now with my 2 kids. Now, you could say that, oh no, my kids were mean to me because I was a bad father. Well, get this, when I had my kids for 1.5 years, they were really good kids, and we got along fine, and they liked me, and I did not like having them dumped on me with all the work, but I was happy that I had my kids. And they were good kids, and we all got along. So if I was a bad father, then, you know, they would have hated me from the time when they lived with me, not from the time that they moved over to my ex-wife's. And then suddenly all this hostility starts, you know. It kind of the timing is suspicious. So somebody wants to, I'll see if I can turn off comments on this video, because I don't want a whole bunch of back and forth in the comments. You want to find out somebody else's perspective. Like when my first wife left, all of our neighbors that knew the 2 of us, they took my side. They said that was really, really bad, and they helped. They jumped in and helped me. Thank goodness for that. So I'm sure her friends had told her the opposite, said she was in the right to do what she did. But anyway, if you want to retort this, make your own video. That's what YouTube's for.